evening. Keeps up the cash. Gary B, the casual comic guy here, and joined as always by my good buddy
Such a
Rob's Fat
smooth
Stacks
beat.
of Comics.
Such a smooth beat, my man. That's what that is.
It's not me to thank for it. That is, of course, C-list E-Man.
Yeah, but I mean, E-Man of the C-list villains.
Yes,
Every time you hear it, though, you just can't help but kind of groove to it, man. He drops some beats. That's good.
he does. Well, he knows what I like, so he went for it. But in some breaking news that you have and that I have, Tylox is stuck in traffic. He is on his way to us right
There's
now,
a
guys.
jam up
So,
on the I-5 coming down to us, right?
exactly. But fear not. As is timely, we have some CGC news price news, which Rob is going to go over with you real quick until Tylox gets here, and then after he does that, we'll
I'll
say
touch
hi to
on it.
the crowd.
Yeah, we'll go into as much detail. I'm going to touch on it simply just because I just dropped the video, literally is live right now over on my channel at Rob's Fast Stacks with the breaking news and a little more in depth. But CGC has announced price increases. Yes, if you're counting at home, that's 3 times in 3 years, and those price increases for compared to what they have right now, not for the average book that you send in, not a huge amount. What we're talking about is if you compare their 2022 price, which is what we currently have, versus a 2023, for an under $400 book, you're talking about $1 on the more or $2 more. But when you really get up into those over $1,000 and more books, that's where you're going to really start to see some prices climb as we get rid of their old express and everything goes to unlimited. So you have a real big jump here from what used to be a $130 flat fee to $150 or 4% of the FMV, which up to $3,750 is $150. But anyway, so big increases though compared to the 3-year delta compared to what we were paying. You want to talk about inflation? There you are, Gary.
Right,
20 to 50% increase in pricing over the last 3 years since
which is
the acquisition.
insane.
Yeah, so that's a big jump there. And if you go, that's gonna be it for this. I'm going to share on that. But over on my channel on the video, I talk about that. But then I go into depth and compare it to the competitors. What does that mean when you look at grading a book at CGC versus CBCS, or even PGX and EGC? Where does their pricing fall in these different categories? If you want to see that, check out the video over on my channel.
And I don't know. You always think too, like with CGC being the biggest name in it, that they would be able to command the lowest. That they would get the product at the best prices, right?
Sure, but at the same time, because you command more, you can go ahead and you can demand more, right? We've gotten a situation where we showed that even in the height of CGC's abysmal lead times, everything else, some people went over to CBCS. CGC didn't really sweat it, right? They've maintained this ability where their position that people just love the white sticker, and because everybody perceives that it's somehow more valuable and will pay a little bit more for it, that CGC has, over the last couple of years, not only have they raised the prices 3 years, but don't forget, you have to be a paying member in order to send books in. So there's membership fees on top of that. And the membership fees used to get you discounts off their rates. They got rid of the discounts unless you're at the most expensive tier.
See, that's why I
Uh,
send in through my comic shop, so I don't have to pay those.
Well, you still have to pay. You have to pay you still have to pay the comic book shops. Plus, I mean, granted, you have a relationship there. He's probably just giving you it at his cost, but still, for the average person,
Right.
that's not the case, right? Um, and then there's the $5 submission fee for an electronic, or $8 for a paper on top of that for each one. So CGC still continues to get the lion's share. They're getting these prices like this. And really right now, you'll, in the comparison, like if you look at CBCS, who's the number 2 guy, right? Even though they've turned around now, their lead time supposedly got it back in there, their pricing is such that where the majority of us are at, most of us are submitting books that are probably under $1,000.
Correct.
right, in value. For those books, CGC is cheaper than
They are
CBCS.
because I switched back over because they were cheaper.
Yeah, CBCS recently raised their prices and made it so that they're more expensive.
And I
At
actually
least,
like CBCS's case is better, but I still switch back to CGC just to
oh,
save the coin.
yeah, I mean, even on some of them, it's such that you can get a custom label on a book on CGC and still come out less than a
Right.
CBCS book if you want, when you compare apples to apples turnaround times. Um, but when you get to the more expensive books, whew, that's really people. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the market, because if you send in a book that's a $5,000 book, right? Let's just say, 'cause I know a lot of us have that, but let's say you have one, you're going to send it in.
Yeah, it's
CG
4% of that, right? It's the
CGC is going to
cost.
run you $200 to grade that, right? Whereas by comparison, CBCS on a $5,000 book is going to run you, assuming if it's Silver Age, 140. If it's a modern book, it'll cost you only $80. Now I don't know what $8,000 or $5,000 modern book you have laying around, but I mean, just
Right.
argumentatively, right? So
Absolutely.
it's a pretty big difference. And it will be really fun to see is if it does that move the needle at all on a third
Now,
party.
as someone that slabs a lot, is it going to move your needle at all for submitting? Are you going to do less? Or you
Well,
just
I'm
going to?
doing less already right now. As I've not doing, I used to grade a lot of modern variants and stuff, and
Oh
don't do
yeah, I
that as
remember you
much.
had over 300 out at one time at once.
Yeah, and well, and that was some of those lead times, and I don't have as much stuff that's going. As I've been buying some of these older books, I've been buying more that are already slabbed. Um, so I'm not having to send as many in. But when you get into moving the needle, especially on some of these moderns, if you're just slabbing it for your own PC, what does that do if you're looking at a $25 price or a $40 price, but PGX is sitting there at $14?
Right. I mean, it's not hard to think about, right?
Well, I mean, some people it is, and it's hard to think about because they think about just pure money savings. Some other people go, no, they just really don't like it, or they don't want the stigma, or they don't want, whatever else. And it is what it is.
Right.
Anyways,
But, oh yeah. Well, while we're waiting for Tylox to get in, let's say hi to our crowd tonight.
yeah, why not?
We already got a good chat going here, and that's without our guests showing up yet. We of course have Las Cruces. Good evening, sir. Tony. Good evening. Chop and Drop. Good evening, buddy. Nice to see you guys. Izzy versus here. We got to get him on the 10-1-1. And we have we have Bill's Treehouse. Good evening, sir. I gotta check out his channel here. I gotta make a note. We have Rob. I'll let you add him while I say hi to everybody.
Do I have to?
Yeah, yeah, you must. You must admit the mullet. We have Naman here. Shop for Comics. Good evening, sir. We have Ignacio. And good evening, sir. And Southpaw Brad is here. Good evening, buddy. Nice to see you. DVH, Dr. Von Hoots. Marco, how are you, sir? They must have liked to be kept waiting. See, Tylox knew what he was doing. He was building
Building
anticipation.
suspense. Yeah, there you go.
Antissa.
It was all about that fun song I put on his thing today. TJ, how you doing, sir? I had to go anti mullet with the theme song for his thumbnail.
I was like, where did you find that song?
It's on my playlist. Barbarian Kung Fu, how you doing? Caroline, how are you? Good to see you.
You could have went with Mountain or 38 Special or
You know, there's stuff you've just heard too much in your life. You know what I'm saying? Kenneth Bird, how you doing? Gore Vidal, good evening, sir. Nice to see you. And I think we are caught up finally on the chat. So, guys, now that he's decided to grace us with his presence, let's make him uh, the big man in the seat. We have Tylox the Mighty joining us for the 10-1-1. How
what's up,
are you this
everybody?
evening, sir?
Hey,
Besides Harry.
it's been a long day. It's been a
Yeah.
long day, and hopefully it will be a better night. Yeah, went to class this morning. Got my butt kicked at jiu-jitsu after I spent all night building mystery boxes. Came home to relax and play some guitar. Amp crapped out on me. Had to buy a new one. Yeah, it's just, one thing after another today. So hopefully since today's over, it'll be good.
Yeah, well, hopefully you got 3 of them out of the way because it's supposed to be in threes, right?
Yeah. I think there was something else that happened, and I just can't
Maybe his
remember.
mullet will fall off halfway through.
God.
No, right.
Well,
No,
the third
you're,
one was CGC raised prices. There you go.
There
right.
you go. Yeah. I woke up to that.
Yeah, claim it and get it out of the way so you can move on to the 3 good
The only
things now.
the
right?
only good thing that really came out of the whole thing is that they removed the minimum submission requirement for pre-screen.
That is nice.
But you got to pay $9 if it fails.
Yeah, I seen that. I was like, what?
Yep.
So you have to be
That
exact.
used to be $5 3 years
you send
ago.
it in and you're like, hey, these are all 9.2s. They have to be 9.2s.
Well, if you send them in, you say grade them. If you say like 9.2s, then they would grade them if they're over 9.2. But if they pre-screen them and they say
Okay.
they're below, then they won't grade them. And instead of paying the 25 or 35 or whatever it is, you pay just $9 for the pre-screen.
Okay.
So
Anyways,
Tylox.
back to you.
Oh, that's okay. I've been looking forward to this. We haven't had you on the channel in a while, but we've never actually just got to talk books that are personal to you.
Yeah.
So first of all, when I texted you, you acted like you had almost forgotten, but then you said your books were ready.
Yeah.
So did
As
you
soon
have
as
an
messaged
easy
me the
time
first
putting them
time,
together or a hard time putting them together?
I mean, literally, I just picked off the wall. All my favorite books are on my wall.
Oh,
So
nice. So
all I had to-
not too
All I had
bad.
to do was pick off the wall, except the spec book and the personal one, and that's it. That's the only 2 I had to dig for. So yes, I picked out which books I was going to pull off the wall. As soon as you messaged me, I walked in the room and I just looked at the adoring thing that was in front of me, and I was like, which ones are going to go?
All right. Well, without further ado, introduce yourself real quick to anyone watching on the rewind who doesn't know yourself, what your channel's about, and then we'll get to your first book.
My name is Tylox the Mighty. Yeah, I had a YouTube channel years ago, and now I'm back. I've been collecting and reading comics and sports cards and just anything, like being a pack rat since forever, like since I was a kid. On my channel, I do haul videos, hang out on Saturday night called Hang Out with Your Hangout, where it's pretty much my version of a haul video. I show stuff, but also I open the chat up, and if somebody wants to come on and show some stuff they picked up that week, whether it be anything, toys, sneakers, anything collectible, then come hang out, have a good time, or at least enjoy yourselves in the chat. And hopefully soon I'm going to be having music content as well. Basically, I'll just play covers of songs and stuff like that and record
Nice.
that. Maybe adding that to my channel as well too soon.
Expand out a bit, huh?
Yeah. I'm a man of many hobbies, and that's what I do with this. This is basically like a vlog where I get to make friends as a bonus. So
Just wait till he gets to his toenail collection, guys.
it's gonna be pretty gross.
No. All right, but all jokes aside, let's get to your first book and start out and seeing what's important to you.
Why is it Florida Man #1?
Right.
Do I think I have that? Anyway, let's start off with this one. Stephen Platt cover, Moon Knight #60. I just love this cover.
That is a nice cover.
It's like negative before there was negative. Like, it's really great, and it's really like I got lucky. I found like a really nice copy. It's not a whole lot of spine ticks or anything. It's a really nice copy for like dollar bin diving. I think I paid a few bucks for this or something like that. But I love Moon Knight. I love the dual personality thing where it's like, everybody always says whatever happened if Batman went crazy. There you go. Like the lines got blurred somewhere, and he didn't know where Bruce Wayne ended and where Batman began. It's Moon Knight. Like, so I've been a big fan of Moon Knight. I think I was in my late 20s when I found Moon Knight.
And TJ said he loves the Platt covers.
I love Stephen Platt. He's a great job. Him and David Finch, and they both worked on Moon Knight. And I think it was around close to the same time. So
very definitive styles.
Steve McNiven's good for Moon Knight as
Yep,
well. But I just
he
love,
sure is too.
yeah, but I just
Now,
love this cover. It's negative, just black and white, and the whole. I love that it says Splat when he spells his name out, and it looks like he splatted. So,
who is your favorite personality of Moon Knight?
um, to be uh now where he's wearing the mask and the suit. I actually enjoy that personality. That was one of the perks of the show, was that's the guy who kind of saved it for me, because you had Moon Knight being Moon Knight and being awesome and just kicking ass, taking names. And then you had the normal, what's his name, Mark. I mean, it's just that was. But then Mr. Knight, that's what they call him. It's my favorite personality. He's just like all calm, cool, and collected, even though there's like that edge of like he knows he has to go do things like
Right.
he has to go take care of work, but at the same time he's more of a businessman about it. It's just so his that would be my favorite alter ego that he's had.
Nice. All right, great number one. Let's smooth right into number two.
All right, oldie but a goodie. I just got this. I participated in the comic community football fantasy football league, and I came in second. And
Nice.
Brian's like, a book that's worth $70, and he found this at his LCS, and he said, "You want it?" And I said, "Yep, I love this cover."
Sub 100 ASM's always a win.
Yeah,
John
and
Romita Sr. John Romita
that's a
Sr.
classic one. I always love him in the spotlight, or when they would occasionally do his belt buckle light on
Yeah,
the cover.
yeah. And those are some of my favorite covers. And John Romita Sr. is my favorite Spider-Man artist, hands down.
Same.
He's ahead of Todd for me. So I mean, and that says a lot for most people right there.
Well, you're not wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
John Romita Sr. made Spider-Man. He was great.
I mean, it's really cool. And just the whole story of I read a story somewhere that he was originally on Daredevil, and he didn't actually want to leave Daredevil to go do Spidey, and they just sweetened the pot so much that he was like, well, he wanted to, do his art and then make his money. And so he was like, and they're like, just take the money. So.
Yeah, because nobody really wants to sit there and draw all that webbing on the body suit.
But I love the suit. I love the way he draws Spidey.
Yes.
I mean, it's classic. I mean,
well, you got Brad being a little bitter. He said he still can't figure out how you came in second the first time he ever played fantasy football.
And I had two spots open on my bench, so I didn't even use all the spots on my bench either. I just
Stephanie,
I
thanks
play
for
video
joining
games,
us.
so I just figured it out. Just like playing a video game, you got to figure out how to beat it. And I was like, okay, I figured out how this fantasy thing works, and I just went for it.
Blind squirrel found a nut.
Yep. You want me to smooth into number 3?
Yeah.
Barbarian Kung Fu says that ASM book is the one that got him collecting Spider-Man.
It's a really great cover. I love it. The detail on the bricks.
Here.
The detail on the bricks are nuts, and I mean, it's got firearms on it, which you don't ever see anymore. So, this is a variant edition of Juggernaut number 1. This is a Sam Keith cover. I got this in an AOK from Phil, my Uncle Phil, cousin Randy. And it's he sent me this, and it's signed by Sam Keith. I love Sam Keith.
Nice.
I love Max. I remember Max from when I was a kid. That's the first time I seen Sam Keith's artwork, and I just fell in love with it. So
now, is he mostly just doing covers these days?
Yeah, pretty much. He does a little mini. He did some mini series actually. Phil also sent me a mini series that he did that was recent, and it was like 4 issues, and that was it. And I think past that he just does covers. But his Juggernaut, that is just I love it. I'd love to see him do Batman as well.
What's so funny is I once you mentioned it, you look at Wolverine, his cowl and stuff, and you can see some very elements of Max in the way that Wolverine is drawn there.
Yeah, you can definitely. That's classic. That's a classic Max pose right there.
You got DVH saying that he loves Sam Keith, and he's never seen that cover before.
Yeah, it's what is it variant? I can't remember. It's like H or I. They did they do a million variants per cover now at Marvel. So
right, and that's weird because I never saw that one.
I have the Miko Sion one too, and that one's on my wall. So if that tells you how much I love Sam Keith, because Miko Sion is great too.
You see, Sam Keith, though I can recognize he's good, and there's certain covers of his I really like. Overall, he's not an artist I connect with a lot. Like sometimes his style is a little too jarring for me. But at
Yeah,
the same time, when he did things like Slain, I don't know if you're familiar with Slain.
no, I'm not. I need
It's
to. I
like
need to.
a barbarian thing he did.
Okay,
It was in magazine format. I thought his style fit that really well. I got Pocan Joe in here as well. Good evening, sir.
what's up, Joe?
All right, number 4.
All right. When I was a young man, like I said, when I was a young man, I collected comic books, and this one, this book.
Something's tickling Rob over there.
Well, Gary, he thinks he's old.
Yeah,
Oh, I know that's true.
I'm almost 40, dude. I'm old.
Oh yeah.
It's
40. I haven't seen 40 in a little bit.
so. As a young man, there was a certain thing that attracted me to comic books, and it was just a story. And it wasn't just that I knew I could never draw like these guys. It might have been something else when I was around 12, 13 years old.
That
10
you,
years
that you fell
old.
for the J. Scott Campbell and
There was this guy named J. Scott Campbell doing this book called Gen 13, and he drew this redhead that I absolutely fell in love
Fairchild,
with.
right?
Huh?
Fairchild?
Mm-hmm. Caitlin Fairchild. And so, yeah, I could not. And then I started reading the story, and as a preteen or whatever, 10, 11, 12, 13, these stories were right up my alley. I mean, this is like they wrote the book for me. It's like,
they have stories.
well, yeah, their stories are like tons of action, hot babes, and like, I mean, dude's name is Grunge. I mean, like,
That's definitely 90s.
Yeah.
it's so 90s. Like, I mean, it's just so 90s and it's so good. And I thought this was incredible. And so, yeah, this is one of my favorite Gen 13 covers that I
It's
have.
incredible if you just
Savage
compared.
one too. I know. Yeah, I knew you would like if I brought the Savage one out, since you're.
There was even a
Oh.
Spider-Man Gen 13 crossover, which like Gen 13 got really popular there for a while.
Wonder
Like,
why.
I mean, they really took off, and everybody that I ever say anything about Gen 13 to, especially around my age, they're just like, "Oh man, it's yeah, that's right. I forgot you love Gen 13." Like, so yeah,
There's something going on in the chat I'm missing here. I'm gonna have to research after.
J. Scott Campbell has a way of drawing women not to scale.
the legs,
but not in the Rob Liefeld way. The way he does it works.
I was about to say, the sometimes he has problems, which is really weird because I mean, the legs don't really look disproportionate, but that's because they're not all the way out. Because if they were,
just go measure from that far down from a woman's navel and see where you end up.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Now you've kind of always been a big Image guy, though, haven't you?
A little bit. I mean, I was lucky. I was lucky to grow up in a time when you had Marvel and DC, because of course you did. And then, but I will always lean more towards Marvel. But then, Image came out when I was like, a kid. So indies have always been a thing for me. Like, I mean, it's not like back in the day, you had like what Charlton, who really were they even really an indie? Or I mean, they were at one point in time, I guess you would call it. And then you had like Kamiko and these little companies here and there, but like the 90s is when you got like Dark Horse kind of blew up and Image blew up, and you had all this stuff
Rise of the indies, yeah.
Image is still going strong, but Dark Horse has been struggling lately. They got to right the ship over there. So, Nicholas, good evening, sir. All right, number 5.
All right, we're gonna go back to young man. When I was a kid, there was a few things that I was into. One of them was this.
I was just about to say G.I. Joe.
First appearance of Sergeant Slaughter. I seen this in a lot on eBay, and I snatched it up. I couldn't not, because I was like, first appearance of Sergeant Slaughter, and then I had a few other books too. But when I was a kid, G.I. Joe, in the morning before school, you watched G.I. Joe, you watched Bill Nye the Science Guy, you watched Saved by the Bell, maybe a few other things, and then Saturday morning cartoons. So yeah,
I
Joe
don't
is,
think I've ever seen an episode of Saved by the Bell in my life.
Really?
Really.
it's actually really good.
Well, let's not go that far.
It's actually really good.
For if
Screech, Screech was my
when
boy.
you're a teenager, yeah, it was our version of a lot of those Disney shows that exist today. But
I love how the show focused on Screech and just had the jocks and the pretty boy there as just like side characters for how awesome Screech was. I bet you Screech had a great comic book collection.
oh, you guys
Yeah,
with
my
GI Joe in
favorite
the
thing about the
morning.
GI
I
Joe
did.
cartoon is you could have a billion lasers going in every direction and nobody get shot.
Well, yeah, everybody parachutes out of their craft and everything else. Yeah, but I don't remember. See, you guys were great having GI Joe in the morning. For me, GI Joe was an afternoon thing. We did not have it before school. Everything was
It was
after school for
our
us.
lineup here was Bill Nye the Science Guy because that's as early as I got up, and then so I got my education in, got my brain working, and then GI Joe was next,
What
and
time
then
you guys
Saved by
start
the Bell.
school?
Wait, GI Joe.
I
And
have
then
seen those, Joe.
Saved by the Bell was what you ran out the door to, you know.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that was our
But
little lineup.
we always had to be, I don't know what time you had to start school at. We were starting school at 8 o'clock in the morning or something like that. Anyways, all right, next
All
one.
right, no, number 6.
Another one from my childhood. This exploded when I was a young man, and everybody had all this
Ooh.
stuff.
Now that we don't get a lot of crossover books on these. That one, quite a few people have brought up.
Yeah, I mean it's Transformers, baby.
I mean, it's more to meets the eye.
Yeah,
Right.
it's more than it's, and didn't know it at the time. Bill Sinkovich's cover, but I just thought
Right.
this was an awesome cover as a young man, seeing it floating around here and there. So,
Optimus is so big. Just
Well, it's just such a great like movie poster cover.
yeah. I mean, it really would be. They should have used this for the movie poster for the first movie when they brought it back. You know,
Trev says that was his first comic.
yeah.
Wow.
And it's funny because I hadn't bought books for forever. I'd taken a big break from buying books, and when I got back in, I think I just started a pull list and was waiting to get like my pull list in the mail. But one day I was watching an auction on YouTube, and I was just like, you know what? I want it. I'm probably going to pay too much for it, but I'm getting it. And this was like the first big book that I bought back when I got back to collecting. Because as soon as I was just like, man, that's childhood right there.
well, and that's it. And that's why that book is, like, as Matt's alluding to, continues to be in demand. It's that the GI Joe, the Thundercats. That's the nostalgia for the Gen X and the younger Gen X and the older millennials that are now at the point where they have more and more disposable income. That's their nostalgia. Nostalgia is an expensive drug.
There's
sure
a reel that's
And
going
they got-
around on Instagram where this person's literally like, being in my 30s is the same as being in my teens, except now I have expendable income and no one to tell me no.
Right.
Exactly. Right. Now I am an adult.
You got Taylor saying he loves the Sienkiewicz cover.
Yeah.
Well,
As a kid, you didn't know who most of these, like, it was just a cool cover and this guy did it. And that was what you
who the artist was? Yeah, who cared?
Yeah.
All you cared was Optimus Prime was on there, and I want to read the Transformers. Absolutely.
So
See,
No,
Mark
one from my
Andrews, he's
youth.
watching because he's on the 1011 soon and he doesn't want to show any repeats.
So also when I was a youth, there was a small explosion of these B movies that came out. I blame Little Shop of Horrors because to me that was like a B movie musical. So that was
Right.
like a team up of like everything. So when I was a kid, I started getting into B movies, and you saw stuff like that, and then you saw stuff like this.
Oh, he's already leading into number 7. Look at him go.
Trauma Studios,
Trauma Studios.
Trauma Studios, yeah.
I would have shown Attack of the Killer Tomatoes too, but I'm waiting to pull the trigger on that one to see if I can get it cheaper. Toxic Avenger was huge when I was a kid. I remember there was Toxic Avenger, and then there was a Swamp Thing show that was out when I was a kid on, like, was it Sci-Fi? It couldn't have been Sci-Fi. I don't even think it was Sci-Fi. I think it was like TNT or something. They showed like late at night, and like I was just all down with this stuff. Captain Planet. Saving the planet was a big deal when I was a kid. I kept hearing about it all the time. Like, we had to buy these shirts with whales and pandas on them when I was a kid. So
I was trauma. If when it came to trauma, I like Toxic Avenger, but for me, I was always more of a Sergeant Kabuki man guy.
You got everyone here loving the Toxic Avenger. And Barbarian Kung Fu is bringing up another classic, Surf Nazis Must Die.
yeah.
Now, let's see. Never knew there. Yeah, neither did I, Matt. Matt Woods is saying he never knew there was Attack of the Killer
There's a
Tomatoes.
few, but they are actually, they were low print runs, and they came out not even that long ago. It wasn't even like when the show came out. They came out in like the early 2000s. So like 2000 to 2010, somewhere. They had a few, I think, minis that came out. So,
See, I'm getting this Kabuki man love. Yeah.
And then Flash by Night, TJ saying Captain Planet couldn't convince us. All hope is lost. And Lady Fantastic agreeing with him. We gave up that shit. We're lovingly embrace global warming.
yep. I hate the cold weather anyway. So,
Right. All right. Number 8.
So also, like I said, this kind of ties in with the Gen 13 book as well, because when I was a young man, there was a cartoon out called X-Men. And it came on every Saturday morning, and I think it was like an hour of it. There was like 2 episodes back to back. They would show a new one and then a rerun, and it was huge, and everybody watched it. And there was the first appearance of this character who I just couldn't get enough of seeing when I was a young man
Rogue.
for some reason. So, the worst first appearance cover in the history of comics.
I like the cover. People
You
can say
like
that.
it?
I like it.
You are the one person on this planet, Gary.
One person.
Leave Al Milgram alone.
But
I think he lost a bet. Really, it was like people. They were sitting there in the Marvel bullpen, and somebody was betting about how many different scenes they could squeeze onto a cover. And when they were playing, like almost like that, like I can guess this song in 3. No, except they were going the other way. Oh, I could put 4 panels. No, I can put 5 panels. I call your bluff.
And then the worst part is behold, the deadly brotherhood of evil mutants, a shocking member guest, and it's a question mark, right? And a shadow. She's right there.
But that book has like the best opening with Spider-Woman swooping down to save.
Oh, there you go. There's the answer to the reason why Gary likes it.
That's why I like it.
Spider-Woman on the front and
cool
Spider-Woman inside.
I did like that they started it that way.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with those characters, Rob.
6 scenes and a giant 10-speed ad. That's right. See you top that.
I got CJ on my side.
Well, no, he didn't say he liked it. He said it's not as bad as people make
He does
out.
great detail with all these small little characters he's got drawn. He's an amazing artist. It's just I would have rather had like this whole panel as the cover. Just this
any one of the panels almost, except for maybe
or just a cover appearance of the character. That would have been great too. Even though the Rogue that was in this book was not the Rogue that I grew up with.
That cover would be fine if it was 20 feet tall.
I'm not sure about that switch. Her first cover appearance may have been in the original Miss Marvel. I'm not sure. I'll have to look
I think her first cover appearance was a different book.
Like Miss Marvel 18 or something.
But it
it was worse. Bravo.
It's a lot worse. Yeah.
No, that's a great book though. I got my beat up like 2530 reader copy. Then I got a 90 slabbed.
This one, when I bought it, according to the guy off of eBay, is an 80. But this
I'll say that one looks pretty nice. I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, well, this is before people pressed as well. I think I just got lucky because, like, when I first got back into collecting when I was in my late 20s, and I was like, I'm going to make a serious. This is like the first key that I ever bought, and it was like $30 on eBay. So I snatched it. And it ended up being, as far as investing goes, it's a good investment because the book is going up in price, and I got it really dirt cheap. And I think it's
I was going to say, and it's going to go up again once Rogue hits.
Yeah. So
that book still has legs on it.
Yeah. Next, this is a big book.
Her second appearance was in ROM, right? Like
yes,
ROM
it
17.
Was. Yeah, and that I can find in dollar bins.
Yeah, people sleep on that one.
So, and I have a third appearance too, which is like X-Men 182. think I'm right. And that was her first cover appearance, was X-Men. Well, no, wait. She was in Rom on the cover, wasn't she?
I think so.
Okay, yeah. So that was her first X-Men appearance. So this is a big book from when I was a young man. This happened when I was a young man. These hooligan comic book artists left Marvel, said keep your money, and made their own company. And this book was everywhere when I was a young man. I think I've read this
everywhere.
I've read this a million times, probably. I swear. This
Oh,
was
that book can't not be everywhere because they made like 4 billion copies of it.
Right.
Well,
I've gone to the public restroom, and it has been there on the roll dispenser for me to use.
From what I've heard, from what I've been able to look up, there was 3 million printed, and there's stores actually did this a lot back in the day. They would tear half the cover off and send it back and get money back for them, or just tear them up. So there was probably maybe a couple million out there of these things.
Like I said, toilet paper, along with X-Men 1, I find them all the time.
But see, the weird part is now they're starting to actually they're doing a sharp uptick. Like it's a good gradual climb in value, because I remember when I was a kid, the first time I read this book was a friend of mine was reading it. He got done reading it and he was like, "This is really cool. You should read this." And he just threw it like hardwood floor, just threw it. I was sitting there playing I was playing like video games or something, and I paused it and he threw it and just threw it on the floor. And I remember kids throwing these away. Like these are abused, like, because we had no semblance of value ever any, and there was
maybe for young kids, but at that time period was the height of people putting things in bags and boards for everything, because everybody thought the next book was going to be Superman 1 or something. But
I grew up on this place called a Mill Hill that was like right next to a cotton mill where my dad worked. And if I told my dad I needed plastic bags to put my comic books in, he would have been like, "What? Yeah. Look, there's Walmart bags right there."
Right.
Trev, you just had to watch out for the staples.
But yeah, I remember these getting thrown around, destroyed, and all that stuff. This is a big book. This is probably, out of my recent purchases, I think this is like one of the most expensive. And this is a big book for me. This is my favorite Spider-Man villain, because I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. Most of my collection is Spider-Man, but I'm a huge fan.
You're like a runaway train. It's hilarious. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Oh yeah, first hobby, huh?
JR, and I think Senior worked on this as well. I think it has both their names on it, but I see a lot of JR in this. I don't see a whole lot of his dad anywhere. I don't know where he'd be if he was. But yeah, Hobgoblin's my favorite villain. I love Hobgoblin.
Which one though? The original?
Spider and like the pumpkin bombs. Like, Green Goblin was great. He was a little more, I don't know. To me, he was a little more evil. Where Hobgoblin, yeah, he was a villain and stuff like that, but he had like, a little more color to it.
Green Goblin's my least favorite goblin. I like Hobgoblin and I like Demi-Goblin.
Yeah. I've been reading was it Gold Goblin? It's not bad. But we'll see how that character goes. Red Goblin, that's the one I'm reading. I need to get the Gold Goblin. People are actually saying
CJ wants to know if you use the tattoos on yourself.
No. And I got this from a community member, John, Big Daddy Ross, sold me this for dirt cheap, and it's really nice shape, and it's got tattoos in it.
It has the tattoos in it on a newsstand?
Huh?
I thought the newsstands didn't have the tattoos.
No, they have tattoos.
Oh.
They're in there. It's cool. Crazy because I got this, and then right after this, the facsimile came out, so I read through it once.
Cool.
And then I carefully put it away because this is really in nice shape. I was actually glad they came out with a facsimile because I was afraid to read it any more than once or twice. And I think that just leaves the one with a personal story and what you got, and the spec book.
Yes, sir. You are correct.
Awesome. So the one with the story is that when I first came back to YouTube, I started meeting all these people, and I met a guy who was local to me.
I heard wrong. Thank you, Matt.
And Yeah, the newsstand. Yeah, I knew they were in there. I was like, if they weren't supposed to, then I've got something
I
rare.
I I thought I read somewhere that was the different one of the differences, but apparently I was either misread or the article was
Oh, Twitch Comics said
Bravo
double
Sierra.
cover. That's so. When I came back to YouTube, I met a guy who was local. He's here in the chat, or he was, and we organized a comic crawl with some other YouTubers who live near us, and we went to Charlotte. We hung out. We ate sushi. We dug for books all day. So this set of books I got a bunch of set of books from there, and this was one of the ones in it, and it was probably my favorite one out of the
I
bunch.
want to pause. I want to set this picture for a second. Imagine, if you will, Tylox sitting down as he is right now to have some sushi.
Right.
I'm very cultured, I like the finer moonshines in life, and
So is that your first Don book?
I bought a few of them. I have a sketchbook. This is, I think, the best cover out of the ones that I got, though. I remember Dawn from when I was a young man, once again, and I just never had really run across any of them digging over the years. I really never seen a whole bunch of them, or I would have bought them, and so I found a big lot of them, and I dug through them, and I bought a few of them. And so this always, every time I see this, it reminds me of, like, going and hanging out with Brad and Nicole Hognett and her husband, and we just dug for books all day. We hit like 3 stores. We wrecked the second in Charles. It was great. But yeah, I just love this cover. I think this cover is really cool. I've actually been recently looking at eBay and looking at some other Dawn issues, especially.
I remember when it first came out, I had the first issue back in the day.
Yeah.
But it's still a cheap series to put together.
I wonder if it was a conspiracy about redheads in the early 90s. I mean, Spider-Man, that has been a thing, Mary Jane and redhead. But then in the early 90s, you had like Dawn, you had Caitlin Fairchild, you had all these redheads everywhere.
And Joseph Michael is just does covers upon covers every month for.
Oh man, he's when I was getting the Merca and Alpha, when I was currently pulling the Merca and Alpha Red Sonja run, every cover I got was a Lensner cover. Like his was every variant. Like I just always go to him, click on whatever his variant was, and that's the one I always got. I love his style. It's like the shading. To me, it looks really, really like a photo or something, or a painting or something like that, versus something you drew. And just
and I like that he draws the women not anorexic. He draws them with real proportions.
Yeah, they have hips and they have thighs and curves, and it's great. I love it.
Way to catch yourself there, Tylox.
So, spec book, that was kind of hard because I really don't spec.
We always say that, but we all do in reality.
I mean, we do, but to me, it just kills my thunder because, I remember when I first got back to collecting, I was always on the hunt for New Mutants 98 because I loved Deadpool and I wanted his first appearance. And then all of a sudden, for some reason, they announced that there was going to be I don't even think it was a Deadpool movie. It's just for some reason, everybody started specking on New Mutants 98. And that book literally went from, I think there was literally a week where I was like, you know what? I'm going to get this book. I really like this character. I want his first appearance. And then I'm going to start buying some of the books. And then all of a sudden it went from being a $20 book I had to dig through bins to go find, or maybe not even that, like 10, 15 bucks you could get them. Maybe $5 if you really, really got lucky, or you just were good at talking people down, to be in a $800, $900, $1,000 book. And I was like, no, what are you doing? So I've been thinking, okay, they're bringing back X-Men, and there's really only 2 things that they could do. I would like for them to introduce Vision. I mean, not Vision, Nimrod. But I think they might go with this one because they've already done Apocalypse. They've already done Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. They've already done all these different ones. Thinking they might do some Onslaught.
Oh, okay.
And as far as Onslaught's associated, besides his first appearance, this is probably one of the most iconic Onslaught books that they had out. Yeah, because I mean, they've really done a whole bunch of stuff. They could maybe do was it the She-Ra? They could do that, but I'm thinking they might go with something like this. Like,
Well, they could. They could go that. They could go Legion. Well, Legion turns into Onslaught, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Or no, was it Legion or was it Phalanx?
I'm trying to. It's been a while since I've read any of those.
Because it was like 90s. Yeah. I need to go back through and reread them. Because I know Phalanx was a thing for a while.
Wasn't Professor Xavier like Onslaught? I don't know. I didn't read any of this stuff.
Onslaught is what all the bad stuff in his subconscious. It's like a physical manifestation
Right.
of Xavier's bad thoughts, I'm assuming. Or
But
something.
he has another version of that too, doesn't he? That dresses in black.
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah.
The only one I ever knew was this one. And I read this when I was probably, like I said, I was a teenager when this came out. And this was like the big thing. It was like Phalanx and then Onslaught. Or it might have been the other way around. But those were like the two big baddies. Because Apocalypse is more of a thing. Like Mr. Sinister and Apocalypse were a thing on the cartoon show. But the cartoon show was far behind,
There you go. Caroline knows. Xavier is Onslaught.
That's
there
what
you
I
go.
thought, and I don't even read it. God, who am I?
Oh, someone's lurking. Oh goodness, yeah. Onslaught. I think that was a time period when I wasn't reading.
And see, that was like my childhood. It's really funny because when I first started actually doing a YouTube channel and hanging out with people who had been into comics, like they knew who all these first appearances were and they had been collecting all these years and stuff like that. This was the stuff I grew up reading as a kid, and everybody else is just like, oh, the 90s. And I was like, it's the 90s. I mean, look at this. Awesome cover.
90s does get a bad rap, but there was some good stuff in the 90s.
Yeah, there was some good stuff in the 90s. And
I've gone back and grabbed some stuff from the 90s.
Look at the artists that came from the 90s. I mean, the artists that came from the 90s were guys like Sam Keith and Dale Keown and Michael Turner. That was their heyday. That was when they were all doing their stuff. Todd and
I think the early 2000s were worse than the 90s. The 90s get a bad rap because that's when all the gimmicks came out. The foil covers, the Dingleberry Daydream covers, the whatever you had.
Hologram covers.
Yes.
All that other stuff. And
whatever they could do to a cover, die cut, anything, they put it out in the 90s.
I was about to say, there's my ASM 365 with the hollow foil cover on it. And then the die cut, I remember I was digging through dollar bins and I came across Sabretooth #1 from his first miniseries, and there was the die cut.
The Shara cover, yeah.
So.
What was like the weirdest?
There were some good books in the 90s, but the 90s weren't that good overall.
Yeah, no, I'm like trying to remember like in the 90s. I remember like I always go back to like remembering when like Wetworks and stuff was coming out, but I think the worst thing I read in the 90s was probably Leonard Nimoy did a comic book called Primordials or something like that, about like
I remember that.
It was like animals were taken from Earth by aliens and then allowed to evolve into sentient beings off Earth, and now they're like a team or somewhere. It was like, I don't remember the whole gist of it, but I just remember that there's like all these animals that were like intelligent or whatever. But anyways.
Oh yeah, like a sentient animal kind of thing was going on, stuff like that. I mean,
William Shatner was doing a lot of that the tech war stuff, which wasn't bad initially.
Stuff like Exo Man
War.
When I was a kid, Exo Man War, you had stuff like that where it was like, anything tech related, everything was tech related. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like X-Men started out as like a thing, like a thing in nature, whereas like genetic mutation or something like that. You evolved as a human being. Some people evolved and some people didn't. And
most of those that didn't are here.
And then, but in the 90s, everything was tech related. You had guys like Cable, anybody with a glowing eye.
And pouch related.
Pouches and big guns and big boobs.
Gear and tech and weaponry. And
right, guns that you're holding in one arm that are bigger than your body.
I mean,
Awesome.
Deadpool could pull it off.
Right.
But yeah, you
Yeah, I
had like
mean,
things like Cable and Bishop, all that stuff was more tech. Everything was a laser gun. G.I. Joe, they were laser guns. Like that's
Well,
something
it's
that
easier to draw. It's easier to draw a laser than it is to try to draw bullets flying.
that's true. And lasers do look cooler. And then they always had to make that sound.
Right.
Like they all made kind of the
It
same.
made it. It made
Like,
it also fantasy violence versus realistic violence, which
yeah.
changed what you were allowed to get away with on TV.
And see, as a kid, I wasn't even thinking stuff like that. I was just like, oh, G.I. Joe, they have advanced weapons. They have laser guns.
right.
Of course they would. Star Wars, they had, laser guns. Why not?
Oh, nice. Enjoy your movie, Stephanie.
Yeah.
They still couldn't show blood in those days. Very true. Nancy Reagan had a lot to do with that back in the day. That's why a bunch of cartoons went off the air.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, but
That's why they had messages.
if it wasn't for, was it Tipper Gore and what was the guy's name?
Tipper was
Al Gore,
instrumental.
or was it somebody got up and said something about there was Tipper Gore. She was trying to get all kinds of musicians canceled.
Well, that's where we got the parental advisory stuff came out of Tipper Gore's.
And because of her, I found out because of I think it was it the president? I think it was the president. I think it was Reagan. No, it wasn't Reagan. Somebody making an announcement that bands like Two Live Crew and like Cannibal Corpse needed to, and I was immediately like, all right, so we're not supposed to listen to that, so let's go find it. Let's go listen to whoever these.
Well, that was a funny thing, right? All these bills they were trying to pass, and it always had the opposite effect of what they wanted.
And okay, I'm not supposed to listen to Ozzy and Judas Priest and Twisted Sister. I've got to hear this stuff. So I mean, if anything, it just had the opposite effect, but it really shaped because. Like, I'm huge into music. I'm huge into metal.
And now you're hell-bent for leather.
And yeah, I mean, that's how it works. So it was George Bush Sr. that said it. That's right. So, yeah, thanks to the president, I got to find out who Cannibal Corpse was, and then I got to see him on this movie called Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
Right.
There was a movie called Airheads that had Rob Zombie in it, or White Zombie in it. That was White Zombie. I forgot. So, thanks to all these 90s movies, I got to see all this kind of stuff. Yeah, Mark, I agree. It was Seduction of the Innocent all over again.
It is every decade. It's just something else. Right now, it just happens to be books.
Right.
And
pretty much whatever's most popular in pop culture.
All right, cool, man.
Yes, good books, Tylox. I like the selection you had.
Yep, it's a little bit of everything. A little bit of old, a little bit of new. A little bit of
not a lot of DC, but that's okay.
Huh?
So not a lot.
That's probably why I like this selection so much.
Well, there
no
wasn't
DC.
Wasn't a lot of bit of barbarians either, but and I did notice the severe lack of bubble helmets, but there was some Spider-Man, so we'll forgive you.
Well, you won me over with the Avengers Annual 10.
Yeah,
I love that book. I don't care. I just like it.
It's amazing what you gravitate to when you're 10, 11, 12 years old. For some reason you're just thinking about one thing and one thing only, apparently at a certain point. So
there we go. Something old, something new. Where's the borrowed and the blue? All right, so we will go around the horn. Yeah, no, Joseph Michael Lisner is good too. All right, so Rob, what's coming up for you, sir?
Well, I did just drop a video about the CGC stuff. It'll break down a short one, but Thursday, the video, my normal schedule, I get a package from the spiral dimension. The question is, did it survive? Because it looks like it went the hard way around the world.
They played some rugby with it on the way, huh?
Dude, you talked about Ace Ventura. This might have been Ace Ventura might have delivered it based on the looks of this box. So we'll check out whether or not it survived or not.
Oh, man.
And then Saturday, only slabs. Chris, Comic Vet, and I sit down with a member of the community, go through their books, their slabs, and find out more about them. This week, Cole from Cole's Comic Claims
Oh,
joins
nice.
us on Only Slab. So you'll want to make sure you check that out at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern.
And coming up for me, this Thursday, we have an extra episode of the 1011 with Naman making a return appearance. So we'll get to see some more books from Naman, so that'll be a lot of fun.
It's always fun.
We also have this Saturday the fourth part of our six-part series with Steffi and I reviewing Conan art portfolios, and that's been doing really well. And we're also campaigning to get nominated for best duo, couple, or collaborative 1 to 5K. So head on over to those CBCA awards and nominate us if you could. And
Nominations open up next month.
yeah, but we want it to be in people's minds. We're campaigning early.
Nominations and my voting live as I did last year.
Right, and but we and next week I'm trying to remember who I have.
Maybe
I'm
when
sorry.
Cole is on Only Slabs, Cole and I can have a mustache war.
There you go. Oh, and I'm sorry. Next Tuesday we have Mark Andrews on the 1011. So he had to bring some great books. Another old school collector, along the lines of like Matt Woods and that kind of generation. I'm campaigning to not get canceled. Who would cancel you, CJ?
That kind of generation. What are you implying? Are you saying that Matt Woods is old or what?
No, that likes to collect Bronze and Silver Age.
Oh, okay.
Matt's saying Mark will bring fire books. I have no doubt about that, buddy. Naman says, Naman, you gotta. I'm not gonna read it out loud. Naman, you gotta send me a picture, another picture too, Naman, to use it as a thumbnail. And Izzy, what was that saying? I'll vote for you, Gary. And Only Slab special to watch. Well, yeah, well, having sex. And John Stout will back that campaign. Thank you. And yes, you are younger than me, Matt. And you can't be more handsome than me, Card, because everybody on this planet is more handsome than me. So that's just a give me. But and the Jackson Roykirk, well, Matt is old. But guys, Tylox, thank you so much for coming on, man. You and I seem to be opposite each other all the time, so we don't get to touch base a lot. It was really nice to talk to you again and spend some time with you, buddy.
Yeah, no problem. I always love hanging out with you, and I guess with Rob too. But
it is what it is.
Yeah, me and you are like on opposite schedules and stuff like that. Plus, I'm having to get like back in the swing of like watching videos and stuff and hanging out in lives because of how my days off are now. I went back to an old schedule, so I got to get used to it again and work everything in. So,
no, great books. And Rob, as always, thank you for co-hosting, and to our chat, which was super lively tonight. So lively, I was missing some stuff and getting lost for a moment. Thank you guys so much for coming out to support me, my guest, my co-host. Everyone's links are in the description below. So if you're not subbed to these guys and you're catching us on the rewind, please go sub them up, follow them on Instagram, sub them up on YouTube. Hit that notification bell. Check out all their content. And guys, until next time, keep it casual.